Welcome to the With Winning in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Heather Sumlin, along with my co-host, Troy Basham, and today we are interviewing Barbara Currier. Barbara is an expert agility coach. She is a mental management certified coach and has been for the past year and a half. And 2 years ago, we interviewed her right here on the With Winning in Mind podcast. You're going to want to check that out too. And we just want to catch up and see how is she doing? What has she learned as a mental management coach? And what's her advice for you? Barbara, we interviewed you 2 years ago on our With Winning in Mind podcast. And lots have happened for you, for us over the past 2 years. So we kind of want to catch up. Like, what have you been doing recently?
I have been teaching a lot of mental management and loving every second of it. I have done a lot of in-person seminars around the country, which has been super fun. I actually am doing in February one in Florida for a bite work club, which I'm really excited about because I've never done bite work protection sports with dogs. It's like one of the sports that I've never been in. And so it's kind of new territory for me on the second day of the mock trial. So I'm really excited to go down and work with those folks and, get to know some people that I have, we just don't travel in the same circles. So I'm really excited about that. I am just absolutely loving teaching the mental management. I actually love teaching it more than I love teaching agility, which is kind of funny because I feel like with agility, I'm teaching people and I'm teaching people to have a better relationship with their dogs. But at the end of the day, I'm teaching people to have their dogs jump over plastic obstacles, right? Nothing super earth-shattering, world-changing. But with the mental management, not only am I teaching people to, be comfortable in their own skin and enjoy their sport and enjoy competing, but I'm also giving them tools in life that, to help make the right choices and to build their self-esteem and just all of these tools that not only help in sports, but also in everyday life. And that to me is so rewarding. And it's really funny because at the end of agility days, I'm usually exhausted, like can barely keep my eyes open, just exhausted. And I have found that at the end of mental management days, yes, I'm tired, but it's a completely different tired. Like I'm energized and like ready to go. Like it's really kind of funny the different effect it has on me versus teaching agility.
Sweet. So how has the change been? Do you add the mental management component to your dog training seminars, or do you do it completely separate as like, I do this and then I do this and you get to pick one, or do you intertwine them?
Well, it end up intertwining because mental management is kind of who I am as a person. It's where my brain naturally goes. So when people get into the mindset of, I don't think I can do that. Oh, no, you can do that. We're not going to do the I don't think we can. We're doing the we can. And, I like to push people out of their comfort zone because I know people can do things. And then I love the satisfaction that they get when they realize that they can. So you kind of get that. You end up getting the mental management with me, even if you're working with me in agility, because I don't know how to do anything different. But oftentimes, like I was in Wyoming a few months back and I was there to teach agility all 3 days. It was a camp and I was teaching with 2 other instructors. And Friday night, I ended up doing kind of a informal, just like kind of like the webinar that Heather and I did, the top 5 mental management mistakes that we see dog handlers make. I kind of did that for them, which then prompts them to want to know more. And, they end up signing up for the webinars and things, which is great. So I'll do that sometimes too, but you kind of get the full package with me overall because I don't know how to be not mental management girl. It just kind of comes out.
I love that. I think you have to be mental management girl if you're a mental management certified coach.
I agree. It's not something you just teach. It's kind of a lifestyle.
Yeah, I find when I'm teaching rifle shooting, I cannot include the mental part. You have to include it, which means you have to share some principles, some guidelines, and you say, okay, let's look how performance is generated. And the next thing you know, you're doing a mini, mental management workshop with that person for a few minutes. And then you realize, I probably should just go ahead and just start off in the bat. Say, okay, first thing we're going to talk about is this. lay the groundwork on how we're going to think. Then let's go with more of the technical, physical aspect of the sport. I think that is just normal way of thinking from me, which sounds like you've adopted kind of a similar thing, where I think maybe the opposite is what most people used to. We learn the physical and technical side. Then much later, we start to be concerned with the mental side.
Yeah, but then you have all of these mental mistakes and habits you've developed. And we make it so much easier by doing the mental at first, right?
Well, okay, so let's run with that right quick since you bring that up. What's some of the one main mental mistake? I know it's hard to just put to one, but if you were to pick one that either one of you have seen that comes up over and over, what would that be?
With dog handlers?
In general.
Comparison.
I'm just talking about competition. Comparison?
Comparison's a big one in dog sports. It seems surprising to some people, but there's so many different ways to compare. You can compare yourself to another handler who's more skilled than you, or you can compare your dog to another dog, maybe from the same litter, or the same breed, or the same age, or what. There's just so many different ways to compare, and it typically pulls you out of balance. That's a problem.
Yep.
That's why you just get a sport where you don't have to worry about animals.
So is there no comparison in like rifle shooting?
I think it's easier because if I'm comparing one rifle to the other, I'm going to choose a primary and then we'll have a backup. I just want my backup to be close enough that if I have to use it, I can run with it. I think when you're dealing with animals, because they're different personalities and you get attached to them, it's a little harder to go, okay, little guy, you're going to go over here, and we're going to go with main guy. Because in the back of your mind, you're thinking, man, I really, maybe I should be, it's a little bit more personal, I think, when you have another living being that's a part of your partner or part of your sport. So it's kind of like a team environment. It's much easier, I think, to compare, well, why is that guy starting and this guy not starting? Because you become emotionally attached to, people, where you're not going to see that could taint how you see things. But when you have an inanimate object where you don't have that emotional attachment, it's just an object. It's like, okay, I'm just going to drink from this cup, But if this cup was dirty and I had to drink from the process cup, I'd be like, okay with it. But if I've got, my main teammate with me and I can't work with them because some reason I got to use another one, I think it's a little bit more emotional in that one. But I could see how I'm going to compare. At the end of the day, it's going to be very hard for me if your dog isn't well and you're running another dog. I think it's going to be really hard for you at the end of the event to sit there and go, I wonder how I would have done with the other one. I think that would be a common question a lot of people in animal sports would do.
Maybe.
It's like look at rodeo. You draw for your the bull, right? Man, what if I drew this guy? What would have happened? I could see that because some of these guys have a relationship with. It's not like these bulls travel on the PBA, right? In the PBR, so they're traveling. Some of these guys, they're like, okay, I know this bull's really, really good, and I know how to handle them. And if they get the draw, they're like, all right, it totally changes their mentality.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where if you just have, oh, here you go. And you're like, okay, I can use that. It's a different dynamic, I think, when you're dealing with animal sports or team sports. We have other beings that you're dealing with that are different emotions and that personalities and that kind of stuff. So I think comparing it becomes a little bit more of an ongoing thing rather than if it's just an object. It's like, I don't like that. Why don't you like that? I've never liked that particular brand.
But do you ever compare like yourself to another shooter?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
So
that was my question.
Like that's to me.
But that goes back to that other person is a person. And there's some people, there's been a couple of people in my career that if I lost to this person, it just really made me mad.
Mm-hmm. So then if you saw that, like, let's say you're at an event and you don't expect somebody who's beaten you before to show up and then they show up, do you then start to be tempted. Obviously, you're the mental master, so you would not compare yourself to this person, obviously. But
No, I would say this. Okay, if I beat this guy, then there's no question I'm better, because I know that person is going to show up. Mm-hmm. The people that
you almost be excited that they came because you're like, yeah, we're going to see what I'm made of today.
Well, the comparison also depends on what level you are at in your competition. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, I compared myself to where my brother was, because we started at the same time. And it was just the two of us. Mm-hmm. So if I knew I was beating him in practice, and I knew I had a chance not to be last in a competition, but then once you go to a competition and you realize, oh, wait a minute, we're both at the top. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes no longer comparing with him. It's like, hey, we should look at, instead of beating each other, look at how we're doing in the country. And then it became, okay, well, now I'm comparing my scores to other people, so I'm trying to get into a school. And then get into school, now comparing myself to other people and other teams. So when I look at comparison, I'm looking at from that perspective, rather than equipment type of thing. The thing that I think is not just a comparison thing that comes up a lot, especially with, I want to say, advanced or veteran athletes, is they struggle, they develop a negative habit, and it's really hard for them to get away from it.
Is that the case in dog sports too? Do you find that they develop a negative habit and stick with it?
Yeah. The one that I see the most is focusing on the things that went wrong in a run. And so we typically have, depending on what level you're running, and whether it's local or international, we have typically anywhere from 20 to 25 obstacles. And in agility at the high levels, you have to be perfect. It's a sport of perfection. And so you could have an incredible run, but if your dog drops a bar, that's it, you're done. And so dropping a bar can be handling related, but it can also just be the footing isn't, they went to take off and the footing moved out from under them. And so they drop a bar. And so many people come out and all they're focused on is the fact that they dropped that bar and it was an NQ. But the rest of the run, the other 19 obstacles could have been an absolute thing of beauty, but all they can focus on is that one bar that they dropped.
Well, and they're reminded of that one bar because some chickie-doo is going to walk up to them afterwards and go, hey, did you notice you dropped that bar? Or is that true? Like, don't they tend to
those are the joy stealers.
Is that what you call those people in your sport? Chickie-doos?
That's what I call them, the joy stealers.
The joy stealers, the chickie-doos?
Yeah.
I don't know where.
I call them something else I can't say on
I don't know where chickie-doo came from, but I'll tend to say that when I'm talking about like a fictitious person, right? And like even in pageant conversation, when I'm working with someone on pageantry, and I'll say, well, chickie-doo before you could go in and say XYZ. And
all right, Barbara, this is the first time I've ever heard chickie-doo.
It'll make them laugh a little bit, but I don't know their names, so I'll make it up.
It's pretty comical. That's
I think we're going to trademark that, Heather. Chickie-doo.
Chickie-doo.
Yeah. How to handle the chickie-doo person.
I think we should have a shirt that says, hey, chickie-doo. I know.
Stop stealing my joy.
Hey, chickie-doo, think before you speak.
When you say chickie-doo, the first thing I thought about was a competitor like Chicken Express or, there you go. There's your chickie-doo restaurant.
I know, on the back of his shirt at an agility competition, which is this wouldn't be mental management approved, but we're going to say it anyway. Hey, chickie-doo, I know I dropped a bar. Like, you're not going to read it. They're going to read it. And they're going to picture dropping a bar.
Tell me. I already know. You don't have to tell me.
But you put it on the back of your shirt, so you never see it. It's only other people, and all they're picturing is dropping bars. That would not be mental management approved.
No, because then I feel like you're putting that out to the universe before you've even run your course.
I know. So we obviously can't do that. Someone else can sell that shirt. But it would be funny.
It's a sneaky way. Funny. It's a sneaky way to build clientele.
There we go. So, yeah. Okay. I guess
so sticking with that topic. So when you have individuals that are focusing on the negative. So I've been doing this for the last 2 years. I've been asking this question, and no one gets it right. They think they get it right because they take it literal, but we're talking about self-image is what we're talking about, because if you're focusing on the negative, you're having a negative effect on your self-image, because what are you imprinting? You're imprinting what you don't want to have happen, then it continues to happen, and you're upset about it, you don't know why, and it's because that individual most likely doesn't understand self-image on how it relates when it comes to imprinting, right? So let's take somebody and just ask them this question. In this country, I'll ask an athlete, okay, no one's gotten that. Tell them this. No one's gotten this question right in 2 years. Okay. And we're talking about self-image. We live in the United States of. You want to say it?
Well, I know what you're going to say, but they're obviously going to get it wrong.
Yeah, they're going to say America. I said, no. I said, we live in the United States of negativity, because we grow up in a society where it's socially acceptable to be negative.
Yes.
You know, it's socially acceptable to be hard on yourself. And then when you look at certain sports, like I work in the golf world, probably 70% of my clients are golfers. And the sport, it's socially acceptable to be negative and hard on yourself. So imagine you have someone who's been doing this sport for 20, 30, 40 years of their life. And they've done it in a society that is primarily okay with being negative, and the sport is okay with you being negative, and then you're trying to tell them, look, we can't go there anymore. You have to learn how to respond, not react to situations. That's the challenge that I face with a lot of athletes, is really getting them to understand responding is what we want, not reacting. And then when you see a professional athlete on TV and they have that pan, and you see this guy go over to the younger guy and he's telling him something that relates to responding, it just makes me feel good. It's like, okay, that guy gets it. You know, when so many times we see people just getting upset and they just spiral out of control and they don't understand what's going on. And then remember, we're sitting there going like, we know exactly what's going on. You're imprinting exactly what you don't want to have happen to improve the probability that it's going to continue to happen.
So, Barbara, so you've been teaching mental management now for a year and a half?
Yeah, it'll be 2 in April.
So what has been surprising, if anything, that you've experienced as a mental coach?
The negativity thing is probably the most common. Just completely focusing on the one thing that went wrong versus everything that went right. The thing that I think it doesn't surprise me, because I've been doing this even before I was teaching. I've been doing it with you for so long that, we've seen so much. But the thing that I always find interesting is how surprised people are, like, especially in the beginning when we do the, introduce yourself and why are you here? How many people have the exact same struggles, but like nobody talks about it with each other. They're like, oh my God, I feel that too. Yes. Oh, okay. You feel really, like, people are so surprised that everyone feels this way. Like, everybody struggles with imposter syndrome and everybody does the comparison, but yet, like, we don't help each other when we're at trials and we see another competitor spiraling. We either ignore it or we feed into it. Like, go over and yes, let's rehash everything that went wrong. Let's just keep rehashing it versus like pointing out all the things that you saw that went well. And let's not go down that road. And it's very interesting to me that we do tend to all want to go down that negative road. And not only do we want to not focus on the positive, but we want to jump in and then start to talk about our negative things that are happening and just kind of fuel the fire.
One thing I've noticed working with handlers too is that it's not always them as a handler that they need to work on the mental management for. It's what's bothering them is things outside of the sport, and the sport is their escape. But those habits and attitudes that they've developed, they bring into the sport. And if we can correct that overall, they become happier, healthier humans 100%. And so it's one thing that comes to mind to me is worrying about what other people think.
Yep.
It tends to be huge in dog sports. Like, they're worried about what other people think of them, their dog, everyone's watching me, I'm in the ring. And that's something that they struggle with outside of that too. And so it's kind of interesting to see how, wait, everything we do helps with all of the things that you might be struggling with outside of your sport, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, people are surprised when I tell them that because everyone thinks that I'm so positive and, happy-go-lucky, and I am now, but people are surprised when I tell them that that's actually not me naturally. Before I started working with Heather, I'm actually naturally a very negative person. I am very high anxiety. I'm a doomsdayer. Like, I expect things are going to go bad so that I'll be pleasantly surprised when they don't. Mm-hmm. That's my natural mindset. But after working with Heather and working through the mental management system for so long, I've actually reprogrammed my brain, and I'm not that person anymore. I'm actually a very positive person. And, I'm more on the line of, let's worry about it when we have something to worry about. And it's just, it's completely changed not only how I am in sports, but just how I address life, and it's a much happier way to live.
Yeah, mm-hmm. But it takes work.
It does.
It takes work. It's so much easier just to complain. Heather would tell you that I am a good complainer. And I think it's because we grew up in a society where it's easy to do that. And so when you go to school and you don't get the grade you want, what's the first thing you do? You tell your buddy, oh man, look what I got. And if your buddy didn't get a good grade, he shows you. And what do you talk about for a good solid couple minutes, right? You're both complaining about the grade you got in a class that you will probably not remember for the rest of your life. But that carries over to now I'm at my sport or I'm in the band or I'm in some sort of extracurricular activity, and then I didn't do something right. And what's the first thing I do? I go to my buddy and complain. And how many times does your buddy go, oh man, I had a great practice today? They sit there and go, oh yeah, man, I screwed up on this, and this. And so we wind up helping each other develop that habit at a young age because we just don't understand. And it bleeds in all areas of life. And then when you get to be an adult, how many people are just, that's their normal conversation. Mm-hmm. After work, I need to call someone to tell them what went wrong, when we really should be doing the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And sometimes I think people get excited to share the things that they're upset about because they want to get riled up. And I don't necessarily think that that's valuable, but I think there's an instinct there that you just want to, well, I'm going to tell so-and-so, they're not going to believe this. And then it gets heightened.
I think a lot of times they're hoping the other person has something that's worse or equal to them. So they feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this. Mm-hmm. Somebody else understands what I'm going through, and they go, "Oh my gosh, don't worry, man. At my job, we have this, and it's a nightmare. So be thankful you're where you're at." Mm-hmm. And then they feel a little bit better because they know someone else is struggling, so then they can confide. And I get that sometimes you need to vent. My wife's a school teacher, and if you've had a bad week in school, having someone that understands what you as a teacher go through during a bad week. Mm-hmm. It's helpful just to vent. But what we're talking about is things that do everything. Venting is when you wait till the end of the week and you just like, hey, can we get together and I just got to get this off my chest. And then they get off their chest and then they change the subject and they're talking about something else.
So I just had this thought bubble. So when we think about venting, it's letting out something, right? So kind of like an actual air vent lets the air out. Yeah. Doesn't suck the air back in. So I think if we vented once, let it all out, and then we close that vent and we're not going to do it anymore, that might be good.
Yeah, it's kind of like the dryer. How many times do you do laundry? Typically once a week. Most people probably do laundry once a week.
Depending on how many children you have.
Let's just say we're talking about individual. So during the week, you're typically not doing laundry every single day. Mm-hmm. So then at the end of the week, when you have time to do laundry, you do laundry and it's done. That's kind of what venting is to me, because the vent on a dryer is not open unless it's running. Otherwise, it's shut. So I like that idea about the venting opening and closing, to where during the week, I'm just going to focus on what I want, make sure I'm staying that way. And this is where I think having a mental management system is an advantage for people. A lot of people find, you're talking about, things that you find that are common or surprising in mental management. One of the things I find that is common in mental management is that when people first learn about it and start to implement it, they think they're only supposed to do the full process of what we teach in competition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in practice or training throughout the week, it's like, oh, I just work on skill. And then I get to determine, okay, now I got to think. And we're like, well, no, you've got to train that, you know, and what happens is they do a hodgepodge stuff. Like, well, I do the preload, but you're not training the middle program, or you're not recording your performance journal. They're like, no, my performance journals, I do it every competition. I'm like, yeah, but you need to do it in every practice session too. Yeah. So it's kind of like they pick and choose a lot of that instead of just making it throughout the week. What we need to focus on. Once they do that, it becomes a habit, then it's like, you're good to go.
So
it's like any other skill that they learn in their sport. You know, if people came to us to do agility and we went, oh, no, you're not going to practice. You're just going to go to competition. Well, it's not going to go well. Like, you need to practice. In the mental management system, it's just like any other skill that you're learning. It must be practiced in order for it to work. It's not something you just whip out at a trial and think that it's going to work. Taking a step back to the venting, because it's a question I get a lot because I'm very positive. People are like, you know, do you ever get mad? Do you ever get disappointed? And I tell them, of course that I do. I'm human. Being angry, being disappointed, like, the system doesn't make those emotions go away because they're human emotions. It's okay to have them. It's what you do with them is the question. And, you know, like, I will sometimes, you know, you're just so frustrated, so angry, and you just got to let it out. And so I tell people, set a 5-minute timer and go and do what you need to do. If your teammate is an animal, put the animal away because they don't need to be a part of that. But, you know, go do what you need to do. And then when that timer goes off, it's done. It's gone. We're moving forward. We're not doing this anymore. I remember I came home from a seminar one day, and it was one I was hosting, and a friend was just annoying me. She had said something, and it was honestly not her. It was me. It was just where my brain was going and the way my brain was taking it. And intellectually, I knew that. But emotionally, I was annoyed. And so I came home and I was telling my husband about it. And he's very good about saying, do you want support or do you want a solution? And I knew intellectually that it was me, that I was being stupid. I was taking something how I shouldn't have, that I was reading more into it than was actually there. And so I said, I just want support. And so he went, that B. I was like, thank you. And then it was funny because that like let all the pressure go off. And then I was like, okay, I'm good now. Like, that was like all I needed. I just needed someone to be like, yeah. And then it was good. Like,
and then you're like, yeah, but she's really not. She's really actually fine. It's me, but I'm glad you were being supportive. Love that.
Exactly.
I like that question. I like that question as like a support person on your team, whether it's a spouse or a friend, whenever you're frustrated, to ask that question. Do you need support or a solution? I'm going to tell my husband that. That's something he should ask me.
Yes, that is a great masterclass thing for all husbands because, you know, men are just natural fixers, right? They want to, you know, we come to them with a quote unquote problem and they just want to naturally fix it. But sometimes we just want someone to listen. We don't need
most
anybody.
of the time you want someone to listen.
Yeah. So, and it's because sometimes I do want his thoughts and his solutions because, you know, he manages a large team of people. He's very, very good at that type of thing. And so sometimes I do want advice, but other times I just want support.
Most of the time I already know what I'm going to do.
Yes.
I just need to talk it through and I just need him to like listen.
But you being women, expect the man to know which one to pick beforehand. And so I think by him doing that, it eliminated that. It was like, okay.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know if this is the 90% I'm supposed to just sit here and be supportive or the 10% she wants me to help with the solution. So take the initiative and just saying, okay, I figured this out. Do you want me to be supportive or do you want me to help with the solution? And you're like, just be supportive. Okay, I can run with that. And then now he knows, listen.
Yep.
Right? And if it's like no solution, that means I need to speak. Yeah. But I guarantee you 95% 95%, if not more, men don't do that.
No, because every time I tell people that at a seminar, they're like, "Can your husband do a master class?" So no,
yeah, just on that one topic would be great.
So funny. I love that, though. I think that's very, very beneficial. So I did ask people to submit questions, and I did it really late, so I didn't get a bunch, but I do have one that I want to ask you. Oh, wait, maybe I got more. Let me double check.
She likes to pick her favorites and put it at the top anyway.
I don't play favorites.
Questions you like? Yeah, you have a certain order you like to ask them.
Oh, I thought you meant people. No,
I'm talking about questions. The topic.
So someone submitted this, and so you take it where you want to go. Okay, Barbara? Okay, I rescued a dog about a year ago from severe neglect and abuse. I'd be interested to hear Barbara's tips for gaining a dog's confidence, and if she has any thoughts about how to know when what she's doing is working to bring out the best in her dogs, and then also how you got into agility.
Well, actually, the answer to that question, to both those questions, kind of go together, which is kind of funny. So my very first dog back in the late 90s was a Chihuahua that I rescued from Chihuahua Rescue out of Minneapolis, I think it was. I lived in New Hampshire at the time, and he was from an abusive situation. It was my very first dog, and I really didn't know anything about dog training. I was a horse trainer. I was doing show jumping at the time with my horses, but I wanted my own dog. So I got this little guy, and he was afraid of the world. He had a chemical imbalance. And so I took him to Tufts University and had work done on him there, like a behaviorist to help me with that. And so I started learning about behavioral modification. And one of the things that was recommended was that I do something with him that would help build his confidence, which is how I got into agility. Because it looked like, miniature show jumping for horses. And I thought, oh, well, this could be fun. And so I started doing that with him. And after that, and he ended up having a very long career of doing everything. I mean, he did rally and obedience, and I even did karting with him. I had this tiny little radio flyer wagon that we turned into a cart. It was hilarious. So he did everything. The key was, and I actually rescued lots of dogs after that. So I've had the whole gambit of personality. And the key to bringing a dog along, especially that's come from any type of abusive home, or even just a dog that has low confidence, is letting them be the barometer. And you have to throw any timeline or any goals and plans you want out the window. The dog has to be the one that tells you where they are in that. So we adopted a Chihuahua from a puppy. Well, we didn't adopt it. We got her from a puppy mill. They were going to put her to sleep at 7 because she wasn't producing puppies anymore. And so we took her, and it took a year for my husband to be able to touch her. She would not go near her. And instead of doing a lot of, desensitizing and forcing the issue, she was very sick when she came to us. And so we just let her be. She got to choose what she wanted to do. He didn't touch her. He was able to get her outside without touching her, if she needed to go to the bathroom, but he just didn't force himself on her. She was great with me. And I took her out to lots of places. I never forced her to be touched by anybody. I would let people throw treats in her direction, but she never had to be approached or touched. That was all on her level. And so after about a year, she started letting my husband touch her, and then other people could touch her. And she ended up coming out of her shell, and she was quite a social little dog. But I never had a time limit. I never was like, okay, I want to be doing this with you in this amount of time. It was all on her time schedule. And I do that with all my dogs, even when it comes to a dog that I got from a breeder and a performance sport. We have all these big plans for them, but they are their own personality, and they have their own emotions about these things, whether they like the sport or don't like the sport, or maybe they like the sport, but trials and competitions are really stressful for them. And so I may have the goals that I want, but I'm going to be flexible in the timeline. And if I have to deter off of a track completely because the dog's telling me that they don't like it or they don't want to do it, then I'm going to listen to them and honor that. So yeah, I got into agility to help build confidence in my little Chihuahua, and
the rest is history.
The rest is history.
That's awesome.
Build confidence.
Yep.
Even works with the size of a Chihuahua.
It does.
Hard to fit in this cup.
It kind of reminds me like Piper. Our dog Piper is very...
You would not mistake that dog for a Chihuahua.
No.
Piper's a big girl.
Piper's so cute. But she's afraid of everything, I think. Like, she's very, very... For example, we'll open the crates like in the morning. They sleep in crates at night. And I'll open the crates in the morning. And she will sit there. If the door to the crate closes, she just won't even bother. She's like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to stay here. Like, she won't even... Every other dog will just nudge it because they know it's open and get out. Oh, not her. She'll just sit there and sit there and sit there. And I don't understand it, but I'm assuming she's just either obedient or chicken.
I don't think she's chicken. Some dogs are very barrier respective. They're not going to push the issues. So if the door comes back on them, they're like, okay. And my border collie would have done the same thing. He physically knew how to open it, but if the door came back on him, he was like, okay, I guess I shouldn't go, because he just is very respectful that way. I made the mistake of teaching Fish how to close doors.
Oh, no.
It was super cute in the beginning, and now he just runs around and slams doors all the time.
Oh, no.
He's literally like a teenager. Like, if you call him and he doesn't want to come, he'll go in the office and slam the door on you.
That's kind of funny. Fish is big. Awesome. Well, Barbara, what are your closing thoughts? Do you have anything that you would like to make sure everyone who's listening knows, maybe your best piece of advice as a mental coach?
My best piece of advice is to give yourself a break, not be so hard on yourself. That striving for perfection is an unattainable goal. We're never going to be perfect. Just try to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. Keep putting one foot in front of the other and focus on the victories, no matter how small.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Barbara. Thanks
for having me, guys.
Thank you for listening. If you like this, hit that little like button, share it with a friend. If you are not a Patreon member, we would love for you to join our Patreon membership. We're going to pick Barbara's brain on how do you get the best out of yourself and not beat yourself up. We're going to talk about strategies to make that happen.